Jon Moxley confronts Seth Rollins after stealing CM Punk's title at SummerSlam. Jon Moxley returns to confront Seth Rollins after shocking SummerSlam title theft. Tensions explode as Jon Moxley storms backstage and confronts Seth Rollins for stealing CM Punk's title at WWE SummerSlam 2025. You won't believe what went down. Did Seth go too far? Is this the beginning of a new war in WWE? In this exclusive Exposed-style video, we break down the dramatic confrontation between former Shield brothers, the fallout from CM Punk's stolen title, and what this could mean for the future of WWE. Expect intense storytelling, insider speculation, and a look at where this explosive moment could lead next. It all started with a single act, one that shattered trust, ignited fury, and rewrote the rules of war in WWE. No one saw it coming, not the fans, not the locker room, and certainly not CM Punk. SummerSlam 2025 was supposed to be the grand crescendo of rivalries old and new. But instead, it became the epicenter of betrayal. And at the heart of it all? Seth Rollins, the visionary, walking away with a championship that didn't belong to him. But what no one expected was what came next, the return of a man who's had enough. A man forged in chaos, who doesn't care about politics or prestige, just justice. That man was Jon Moxley. The moment the cameras cut after SummerSlam's chaotic final match, whispers started swirling through the arena. CM Punk lay in a crumpled heap outside the ring. Security swarmed the backstage corridors. Fans online were losing their minds over what they had just witnessed, Seth Rollins holding up the World Heavyweight Championship, a title he never earned that night. Punk never tapped. There was no bell, no official decision. Just a confused referee, a steel chair left at ringside, and Rollins vanishing through the curtain with the belt clutched to his chest like a trophy won in war. It was a robbery in plain sight. But what happened backstage, in the moments after that controversial ending, is what truly sent shockwaves through WWE and marked the beginning of a new and dangerous chapter, according to exclusive sources. The backstage atmosphere at SummerSlam was electric and tense. CM Punk had reportedly been rushed to medical for evaluation, his ribs possibly fractured after the brutal beatdown in the final moments. Paul Heyman was said to be pacing the hallways like a caged animal, seething over what had just transpired. But then, amid the chaos, the entire locker room fell silent. A black SUV pulled up behind the loading dock. No music. No lights. Just the unmistakable presence of a ghost from the past. Jon Moxley was back. Those who saw him described his eyes as locked with rage. No fanfare. No greetings. Just one mission. Still in jeans, boots, and a black hoodie pulled over his head, Moxley stormed through gorilla position with tunnel vision. WWE security tried to intercept him, unsure of why he was there. He hadn't been advertised. He hadn't been on a plane manifest. And yet here he was, like a storm materializing out of thin air. The Shield's lunatic fringe. The man who once bled for Seth Rollins. Now, the man ready to bleed because of him. Rollins was in his private dressing room, still in his gear, the stolen title draped across a bench beside him. He was alone, no Becky, no faction members, no security. Just a quiet moment with his thoughts. Or so he thought. The door didn't knock. It slammed open. What happened in that room has been whispered about but never officially acknowledged. But through pieced together eyewitness reports and locker room accounts, the picture becomes terrifyingly clear. Rollins stood up, startled, staring face to face with a man he hadn't seen in years. Not since Moxley walked out of WWE. Not since the Shield disbanded in blood and bitterness. Now, Jon Moxley was inches away, his jaw clenched, fists at his sides. You think you can just steal something that doesn't belong to you? Moxley's voice was low, controlled. For the moment, Rollins tried to compose himself. He smirked, leaning against the locker, his arms crossed. You wouldn't understand. You never did. This is about legacy. But Moxley didn't flinch. No, this is about betrayal. You think you're the puppet master now? You think you can step over Punk and rewrite the ending? You're no visionary. You're just scared. There was a beat. The silence between them was deafening. It wasn't just old wounds being reopened, it was war being declared. Then, according to one crew member, Rollins lunged first. Maybe he thought he could intimidate Moxley the way he does others. But Moxley had lived through barbed wire and broken bones. He ducked the strike and slammed Rollins into the wall so hard a mirror shattered. Fists flew. Screams echoed. Security stormed the room, dragging them apart. Rollins' lip was split. Moxley's knuckles were bleeding, and just like that, he was gone. Moxley didn't stick around. He didn't want a contract. He didn't want headlines. He just wanted Seth to know, you don't steal from family and expect silence. But the confrontation didn't end there. Word of what happened spread like wildfire. CM Punk, upon hearing the news from his hospital bed, reportedly smirked and said, "Told you he'd come." It was unclear whether he meant it as a warning or a blessing. Either way, the balance of power in WWE had shifted. Triple H, WWE's chief content officer, was allegedly furious, not because of the fight, but because of the truth it exposed. Seth Rollins, once the company's golden boy, had taken something that was never officially his. And now? There were consequences. In the days that followed, fan forums, Reddit threads, and dirt sheets exploded with speculation. Was Moxley back for good? Was this a one-off appearance? Was WWE secretly negotiating a Shield reunion or a war between its fragments? And more importantly, was CM Punk okay? Behind the scenes, medical staff confirmed Punk had suffered bruised ribs, a possible hairline fracture in his left forearm, and severe dehydration after the brutal SummerSlam match. He was discharged 3 days later and has remained publicly silent, posting only a single black and white photo of the World Heavyweight Championship, face down in a puddle. Meanwhile, Rollins hasn't addressed the confrontation with Moxley directly. At a recent WWE press conference, he dismissed questions with a smirk and a cryptic line, "I do what I have to." Visionaries don't follow the rules, they make them. But sources within WWE say he's been more paranoid than usual, more private. Cameras caught him entering Raw in a hoodie, head down, flanked by security. Gone was the swagger. In its place, a man who knows he has a target on his back, and that target? It wears a black hoodie and walks with vengeance in his veins. For fans, the symbolism is clear. The Shield, once WWE's most dominant faction, has fractured beyond repair. Roman Reigns, now at war with Solo Sikoa's version of the Bloodline. Seth Rollins, spiraling into narcissism and power grabs. And Jon Moxley, the rogue element. The ghost of the Brotherhood. What happens next is anybody's guess. But if one thing is certain, it's that Moxley's return was no accident. It was a statement. A warning. A declaration that the rules have changed. That chaos is coming. And Seth Rollins? He may have walked out of SummerSlam with a stolen prize, but he just inherited a nightmare he can't outtalk or outstyle. As WWE heads into the fall, tensions are boiling. A returning CM Punk. A paranoid Seth Rollins. And now, Jon Moxley, a wild card with unfinished business and nothing to lose. This isn't just about titles anymore. It's about history. It's about betrayal. It's about who still believes in justice when the lights go out, and somewhere in the shadows, Moxley waits. The fallout didn't end backstage. In the days following Jon Moxley's return and his explosive confrontation with Seth Rollins, WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut, entered what sources described as crisis management mode. Executives were scrambling, not just to control the narrative, but to assess the deeper consequences of what was brewing. They had a storm on their hands, and it wasn't just internal. The fans were watching. The media was watching. And perhaps most dangerous of all, CM Punk was watching too. CM Punk's silence in the aftermath of SummerSlam was not an oversight, it was calculated. For a man known for his loud opinions and scorched earth promos, Punk chose instead to let the world speak for him. The internet erupted with support, anger, and speculation. Was he robbed of his legacy again? Was Seth Rollins being protected by higher powers within WWE? Would Punk ever get revenge, or had his body finally betrayed him for the last time? but the image he posted, a lonely, face-down championship belt lying in a pool of water, spoke volumes. It was haunting. Symbolic. A visual eulogy for everything he fought for, stolen in the blink of an eye. And then, a week later, Punk showed up at WWE Raw, unannounced. The lights dimmed midway through the second hour. A confused hush fell over the crowd. The Titantron flickered to black. And in a moment that no one was ready for, the words "NO1 is safe" appeared in blood-red letters. The crowd erupted. The commentary team went silent. Seconds later, CM Punk walked onto the stage, not in ring gear, but in black jeans, a zipped hoodie, and taped fists. There was no music. Just the roar of the crowd, deafening and primal. He didn't walk to the ring. He walked straight to the commentary table, took a headset, and calmly said, to everyone watching at home, "I'm not here to fight. Not yet. I'm here to listen. And Seth, I hope you're listening too. Because the clock's ticking, and I promise you, I never forget a theft." The screen cut to commercial. Backstage, things were no better. Seth Rollins was reportedly furious that Punk had gone off script. According to several insiders, he stormed into Triple H's office after the show, demanding control over how the narrative would unfold. But Triple H, cold and calculated as ever, reportedly leaned back in his chair and said one thing: "You made your bed, Seth. Now lie in it." The situation was spiraling. Seth Rollins had lost control, not just of the locker room, but of the entire storyline. What was once a carefully curated legacy, sculpted with championship wins and viral promos, was now threatened by two of the most dangerous wildcards in WWE history. Punk and Moxley weren't bound by contracts or creative meetings. They were fueled by principle and by personal betrayal. Whispers began spreading within the locker room. Some superstars, especially the veterans, were sympathetic to Punk. They knew what it was like to have everything taken in an instant. Others feared Moxley, especially the younger talent who'd only heard stories of his unhinged brutality in AEW and the independent circuit. And then there were those who stood with Rollins, not because they believed in him, but because aligning with power was safer than standing alone. But it wasn't just the locker room feeling the tremors. WWE's board of directors had reportedly begun private meetings to evaluate the growing unrest. While the SummerSlam controversy had spiked ratings and social media engagement, they feared the unpredictable chaos that followed. If Moxley wasn't under contract, what were the legal implications of his backstage assault on a contracted superstar? If Punk's medical clearance was in question, was WWE risking another lawsuit? Triple H, however, saw something different. He saw opportunity. He saw war. And war sells. Behind the scenes, a plan was quietly being formed. One that would let the chaos breathe, but with a target in sight: Survivor Series 2025. But plans have a way of collapsing when you're dealing with Jon Moxley. On the September 2nd episode of SmackDown, the unthinkable happened. Moxley appeared again, this time live, during Seth Rollins' in-ring promo. Rollins was addressing the controversy surrounding the title, giving a half-hearted apology to CM Punk, while painting himself as a savior who kept the belt relevant during a time of uncertainty. The crowd wasn't buying it. Boos rained down. Then the camera cut briefly, unintentionally, to the crowd. A hooded figure had jumped the barricade. The crowd exploded. Moxley slid into the ring, steel chair in hand, eyes locked on Rollins. The visionary froze. He didn't run. He didn't fight. He smiled. "Mox," he said into the mic, "I knew you'd come. Welcome back to the machine." And then Moxley swung. Security didn't get there in time. Rollins was knocked out cold, his head bouncing off the mat. Moxley didn't gloat. He didn't yell. He simply stood over him, looked straight into the hard camera, and said, "Two down. One to go." The message was clear. First Seth. Then CM Punk. Then, what? That question hung in the air like smoke. Was Moxley really after Punk too? Or was he warning WWE that no one was safe from what's coming next? Online fan theories exploded. Some claimed Moxley had snapped and was taking out everyone associated with the Shield's past. Others believed he was protecting Punk, acting as his silent enforcer until he was healthy enough to return. A few even speculated that all of this was a Triple H master plan to reunite a darker, more violent version of the Shield for one last war against the new bloodline. But within WWE, one man wasn't speculating. Paul Heyman was plotting. After weeks of silence, Heyman made an uncharacteristically raw backstage promo on Raw. He didn't address Seth. He didn't even mention Moxley by name. He simply said, "This company has forgotten the price of loyalty. My clients, past and present, have paid it in blood. But now the currency is betrayal. And trust me, I'm going to make sure the debt gets collected." The cryptic threat left fans wondering, was Heyman assembling a counterforce? Could we see an unholy alliance between Heyman, Punk, and even Moxley? Or was Heyman, as always, working behind everyone's back, playing Roman Reigns against Seth, Punk against Moxley, just to retain his power? At the center of this swirling storm was Triple H, smiling quietly in meetings, watching the chaos unfold like a chessboard. Reports suggest he's pushing for a no-holds-barred match at Survivor Series between Rollins and Moxley, with Punk as special guest referee. If true, it would be one of the most anticipated and unpredictable main events in WWE history. Not because of the match quality, but because of the emotion, the betrayal, the legacy on the line. And yet, the biggest twist might still be coming, because as of this moment, Roman Reigns has said nothing. The former tribal chief, once the anchor of the Shield and WWE's most dominant champion in years, has remained completely silent. No tweets, no promos, no press appearances, just absence. And when it comes to the Shield, silence has always been Roman's most dangerous weapon. Could he return at Survivor Series? Could he be the wild card in this three-man storm? Could he even side with Moxley? The possibilities are endless. But one thing is clear, WWE is no longer a playground. It's a battlefield. And the rules are gone. As we inch closer to Survivor Series, fans are no longer just watching wrestling, they're watching revenge unfold in real time. Seth Rollins thought he could outsmart the system, that he could take what wasn't his and walk away untouched. But in doing so, he awoke two ghosts of the past, one a rebel prophet, the other a rabid dog off its leash. Jon Moxley has returned not to fight for justice, but to be justice. And justice, in his hands, is anything but clean. For weeks, the WWE Universe watched with bated breath. SummerSlam was no longer just an event. It had become a spark that ignited a full-scale war. Jon Moxley had returned like a ghost with a vendetta. CM Punk, bruised but calculating, remained silent but present. Seth Rollins, the visionary, had gone from champion to target. And in the shadows, another figure loomed. Silent, unpredictable, dangerous. Roman Reigns. It had been nearly 2 months since the former tribal chief vanished from WWE programming. After collapsing backstage during a previous SmackDown episode and stepping away for health reasons, Roman's future in the company was uncertain. Rumors swirled. Was he recovering in private? Was he watching everything unfold? Or had he finally walked away for good? But as Survivor Series 2025 approached, the silence broke. Not with an entrance. Not with a return. But with a phone call. Leaked audio from a private backstage meeting between Triple H and Paul Heyman found its way online, unverified, grainy, but unmistakably real. In it, Heyman could be heard saying only one sentence that sent shockwaves across social media. "Roman gave me the green light, and that changes everything." The timing couldn't have been more strategic. WWE was already teasing a triple main event at Survivor Series, Seth Rollins vs. Jon Moxley, with CM Punk as special guest referee. The Shield's past colliding in one of the most emotionally loaded matches of the decade. But now, Roman Reigns, silent, sick, and still feared, was re-entering the battlefield. Triple H's response to the leak was classic Hunter, controlled, cryptic, and designed to stir speculation. In an exclusive sit-down interview with WWE.com, he said, "This isn't just about a match anymore. This is about family. About broken legacies. And sometimes, the only way to fix something is to destroy it completely. Behind the scenes, preparations were already underway. Survivor Series would no longer feature one main event. It would feature two. Night 1 would see CM Punk versus Seth Rollins in a sanctioned title match, no tricks, no controversy, just closure. Night 2 would see Jon Moxley versus Roman Reigns, under unsanctioned rules. No countouts. No disqualifications. Just war, but before fans could celebrate, disaster struck again. On the final Monday Night Raw before Survivor Series, CM Punk was found unconscious in the locker room, his ribs re-injured, his ankle twisted, a broken mirror nearby. Cameras didn't catch the attack. No one claimed responsibility. Seth Rollins, ever the opportunist, smirked through his backstage interview and offered a single line, "Looks like the best in the world," couldn't handle the pressure. Moxley, upon hearing the news, nearly didn't show up for his scheduled SmackDown promo. Reports backstage claimed he was pacing back and forth in the parking lot for hours, torn between rage and guilt. Had he brought this chaos back with him? Had he drawn Punk into a war neither of them could win? But when Moxley finally took the mic in the middle of the ring, the world listened. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he growled. "I didn't come back for this. I came back for truth. For justice. But every time I try to clean this place up, it bleeds more." He paused. Looked at the camera. "Roman. You've been quiet long enough. You see what's happening. You feel it. You can stop this, or you can finish it." The crowd erupted, and for the first time since SummerSlam, Roman Reigns responded. That Friday on SmackDown, during the final segment of the night, the lights went out. The screen turned black. The arena waited. Then, one by one, old Shield clips began to play. The debut. The powerbombs. The betrayal. The triple threat at Battleground. Their separate paths, and then Roman's voice echoed through the darkness. "I held this company on my back. I bled for them. I died for them. And what did I get in return? Betrayal. Silence. A new bloodline rising without me. Shield brothers turning into strangers. Seth, you forgot where we came from. Mox, you forgot what we built. And Punk, there was a pause. You were never one of us." The screen cut to static. Survivor Series was now officially out of control. When the weekend finally arrived, fans were buzzing with one question: who would walk out?